Welcome to We Hear Her. I'm Erin Trenbeth Murray, and I'm here today with another amazing woman who is sharing her story and insights into life lessons learned.
Hi, I'm Mallory Santa Cruz, and I'm here for another episode of We Hear Her, a podcast by women who succeed. And we are excited to hear today from Cecily Jorgensen. Cecily, we're grateful to have you as a new member of Women Who Succeed on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Wonderful. Well, please tell us just a little bit about your background. And I know that you have a huge passion for empowering women and for women's mentorship programs. So if you'd like to tell us a little bit about where that passion came from and some recent projects that you've been working on.
Yes, so I usually tell people that I'm a musician turned marketer because I started out my career actually as a local singer, and I taught piano lessons and I directed shows, and I did that for about 6 years until I decided I wanted a bit of a career change. And so I was thinking, well, what are my other skills? I'm super organized. I just have that personality where I want to just like put things in order. And so I was like, okay, what can I do in the business world with that? And I was like, executive assistant. So that was kind of how I got my way into the business world. And then from there, I was like looking around and I'm like, what else can I do around this company? And just started kind of weaseling my way into marketing endeavors. So then I started this impromptu marketing career. And then I decided, oh, I think this feels like a good fit. Like as a creative person, marketing felt like a nice mix of business and creative. And so then from there, I worked at a marketing agency because I knew I wanted to work in a fast-paced environment. I really thrive with a lot of variety. And so that was my next career move. And so I've been at Avalanche Media for 4 years now. I'm just coming up on 4 years. And I was recently made director of project management, which
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much. It's a huge milestone for me and something I've been working toward. I just really enjoy the management side of business. And I really enjoy leading a team because I just feel like I love the people side of business. And so I love helping people learn and grow and help them navigate different situations that happen in the workplace. And I think that's where my just passion for helping women specifically navigate those types of challenges in the workplace and helping them learn and grow in an environment that isn't always super maybe friendly to them or so yeah, that's kind of where my passion comes from and why I've chosen to be involved with things like Silicon Slopes Women in Leadership, so that I can have another outlet to help young girls and women recognize their innate leadership qualities.
And that's great. That's how we crossed paths, actually, was Silicon Slopes Women in Leadership. And I know that that really was where I first saw your passion for mentorship. Is there a time in your life where you personally have experienced the empowering nature of a mentor?
Yes. So I will definitely say that my first mentors, or where I just like recognized people were mentoring me, was at a place where I work called Decision Wise, and that was where I made that transition from executive assistant into the marketing world. And so I did need a lot of help, right? I needed people to kind of guide me through this career that I had no idea was even going to happen. It was almost like accidental. And so I had a marketing director that I worked under, and then I had a marketing VP, sales and marketing VP that I worked under. And both of those men really did take me under their wing and just helped me understand what I needed to know to keep furthering my marketing skills. So whether it was, hey, Cecily, we want you to try your hand at now creating emails for us. Okay, here's how you work in Salesforce. And my marketing director, Jake, he was just always so kind and willing to help me navigate that platform, which was kind of hard to use if anyone's used it. And then the same goes for my VP of marketing and sales. He was just somebody who was always looking out for me as far as how I was showing up as well in the office. And he said something that I'll never forget of like, don't be so process oriented that you forget the people, because I am very process oriented. And there's, when you're new and young in the business world, you kind of don't know where that line is, quite honestly. And so I felt like he was very instrumental in like helping me see where that line is. And that has really stuck with me, throughout my whole career. So I'm very grateful for their mentorship in helping me figure out the marketing skills that I needed to level up in.
I love that you talked a lot about skills, and that's something that you mentioned as well when you had come in as an executive assistant, and it's really kind of followed you throughout your career. What do you think are the most important skill sets that women should develop early on in their careers?
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about a lot as I've made this leap to a director. I felt like as soon as I got that mantle, I was like, oh, I need to level up, and like, what are the skills that I need to level up on? And the first one that comes to mind is just resilience, quite honestly. I think when you are a leader, there are unique challenges that come. You're not only doing your core work, right? For me, that's being a project manager and having clients. But not only do I have to keep up with that work, but I have to keep up with, 6 to 7 people on my team and like everything they're going through, and taking kind of on sometimes their emotions and their problems on top of my own. So I think as a leader, you have to build like a capacity for that. You have to like build the space where you can not only hold your own problems, emotions, but the problems and emotions of others. Or else you're going to crumble, I think, pretty quickly if you can't navigate kind of both of those things. And so I think, resilience, and then communication, I think, is the second one. Being a leader, you have to be even more thoughtful in how you communicate things, because people are very affected by the way that certain people talk or tones or, whatever. And as a leader, you really are kind of held to a higher standard. And so I've definitely learned to maybe like pause when I have to have a response, usually waiting 24 hours to respond to certain things is always a good idea. Don't respond in the moment or in anger. It's something I've definitely learned. And then as far as communication goes, learning how to truly listen, because that is one of the biggest things that I see like in employee engagement surveys, is that's usually the top thing that employees identify as maybe an issue with the company or company culture, is people don't feel heard. And so something I've been really working on is, okay, how can I make employees feel like I listened? I maybe didn't, address, maybe I didn't have the power to address what they wanted to talk to me about, but I always want them to at least feel like I listened to them, I heard them, I understood. So yeah, communication is a big one. And then I think a third one for me would probably be building just relationships, getting better at almost forming alliances in a way. And those don't always happen naturally. Sometimes they do. But looking around you and thinking, okay, who should I be kind of teaming up with to solve organizational issues, right? Who can I lean on? Who can I have help my team? So I think those are probably my top 3.
I love that.
Yeah.
Resiliency, communication, and relationship building.
Yeah.
I love going back just a moment when you were talking about some of the male individuals who have mentored you
Yeah.
in your life. I think a lot of times, particularly in our space, we focus a lot on women being mentors, but also having those male allies,
Yes.
those men who are willing to speak up and provide opportunities for advancement and feedback.
Yep.
And I know that feedback is an area that you're very knowledgeable and very passionate about.
Yeah.
How do you feel like mentorship can incorporate a give and take of feedback?
I think I have leaned on, especially women. In the past year, I feel like I've come into contact with a lot more women just being involved in Silicon Slopes Women in Leadership. And a lot of my mentorship has come through like impromptu moments, like I didn't go and say, you are my mentor now. But I have had a lot of mentoring from different women. And I have approached them. I mean, just recently I asked a person that I view as a mentor, and I was asking them about a very specific situation at work on giving feedback specifically. And so I think having those mentors who have been in a management situation longer than me has helped me because they've seen things. They have battle
experience.
stories, they have the battle scars, and they can talk to me about, when I tried this way of communicating, the person was much more responsive. Or just be careful when you go into the situation, maybe set up the conversation this way. And I really appreciate being able to draw from other mentors' experiences because I've only been a manager for 2 years. So, I'm still pretty fresh in my role, and I need other experiences to draw from, not just my own.
And I love that you are proactively seeking feedback as well. I think there's areas oftentimes where there are certain situations or areas that we can solicit feedback. And then also going back to that feedback that you'd received, right, about involving people and focusing on people as well as processes.
Yes.
We've talked a little bit about informal types of mentorship. Where do you think the value and power comes in of formalized mentorship programs and groups?
So I do feel like when you have the formalized kind of version of mentorship, you can maybe focus in more on a certain area. So for instance, with the mentorship program that we created through Silicon Slopes Women in Leadership, I was able to participate as a mentee. And so I knew that I might want to figure out if more technical project management might be something I'm interested in. So I love the marketing world, love the creativity, but the tech world has always called to me a little bit. And so I wanted to kind of talk to somebody who was an expert in agile methodologies. And so that was where I had the chance to have a formal mentor for the first time. And so we were just really able to zero in on, okay, we're just talking about what does it look like to implement agile methodologies into your project management environment, right? And so I, went through a 3-month formal mentorship relationship with this agile coach, and she had a specific background in marketing, and so she was using those principles in a marketing background, which in a marketing environment. And so that was very valuable to me to be like, okay, if I'm going to start learning more about these methodologies, start practicing them, how do I do that in my current environment, right? So it was just super valuable for me to be able to explore that formally with an agile coach.
So you'd also mentioned that this last year you've created really impromptu, kind of serendipitous connections with people through networking. What strategies do you think that women can implement in order to find and develop meaningful networks that really increase their social capital?
Yeah. I can share what I did to start networking
Yes,
because
please do.
I was somebody who was a self-proclaimed like network hater, which it seems so ridiculous to me now. I'm like, why was I so emphatic that I hated networking? And I think it was just because I had a certain vision of what networking was, or people told me what networking was. It was going to a big event where you're kind of like, maybe feeling a little bit like a wallflower. You're not super confident going into just conversations randomly. And so that's what I thought networking was. And I was issued a challenge by one of the owners of my company to build my social capital and build my network, because that is how the executives at our company, they bring in business. And so they're the type of people who are very focused on creating those solid relationships in the community. And so then I had to start thinking about, okay, well, I've just been issued a challenge to start networking and building my social capital. What does that look like for me? Because I can't do things unless I feel like it's authentic to me. I'm not a fake it till you make it type person. And so that's where I had to get clear, what does networking look like for me? And so the easiest way for me to start networking was LinkedIn. And so I started making connections, and my strategy was to make connections with, other project managers and kind of hopefully get things coming into my feed that were from people in my same situation. And so maybe they're talking about, best practices with project management. Then my next step was, okay, well, I might want to be a program manager one day, like move from project management to program management. So then I was kind of forward thinking about, well, where do I want to be? So then I started following program managers, and I even connected with them and wrote a little note like, hey, I'm on the path to become a program manager one day. I would love to connect and possibly speak with you one day about what that transition would look like, what program management for you really looks like, and what's the difference between project management to program management. And you wouldn't believe how kind people really are when you reach out like this. I think sometimes people don't want to bug people. And I would just say, be bold, have a reason that you're reaching out, of course, and have a nice note of why you want to connect with this person. But I think that's a really solid place to start, is trying to network with people who are in your position and then maybe where you want to be. Then I actually did something kind of interesting where I created a Utah Women's Leaders Support Group. And because I wanted to have a space where other women leaders could come and talk about unique leadership situations and issues. And so I had a first meeting, and I think about 6 or 7 women showed up. And I was actually able to meet somebody who I consider a mentor through that. So that was a pretty bold move, just create an event. Yourself, honestly. If you want to go that bold, create something where you're going to attract people, right? And so that was another thing I did very early on when I started to try to network. And then from there, I started attending more events, like our Silicon Slopes Women in Leadership events. What's the tech one that we go to? Tech Council or
Women Tech Council?
Yeah, Women Tech Council. Going to events that they're putting on. And then I started meeting women through those situations. And it just kind of snowballed from there. So I would say attending events can be very good. And going with somebody that is one of those connector type personalities is really helpful. So I think people should be watching LinkedIn almost for those types of people who are shouting people out and, oh, you should know this person. Because those people will be able to help you expand your network much quicker, because they're very good at being like, oh, you should know so-and-so. Oh, they need this and you have that. So I think those are my biggest tips for building a network.
It's almost like another type of mentorship.
Yeah.
Receiving mentorship in networking.
Yes.
What recommendations do you have for both mentors and for mentees in terms of really taking advantage of and leveraging that mentorship relationship?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones is, well, number one, I think if you're going into a mentorship relationship, like as the mentee, I think getting very clear about what it means to be a mentee. And honestly, I didn't really know when I first started. And I think I watched a LinkedIn learning video on mentorship where they kind of went over the roles and what a mentor should expect from a mentee and what a mentee should expect from a mentor. And I feel like as a mentor, knowing enough about your mentee to be able to connect them to people and opportunities is just a huge difference than like maybe some of the informal mentoring. Like when you get to know them on a deeper level, I think it is a little easier to think of them as a whole person and then work towards connecting them with the right people and opportunities.
So, Cecily, what advice would you give to women who are just looking to start their careers in how can they build their leadership skills?
Just be bold, honestly. I feel like a lot of people just kind of sit back and they kind of wait for things to happen. And I attribute a lot of my success in moving like up the ladder very quickly to never sitting back and waiting for somebody to tell me what to do. And so I think what that looks like is when you're first starting out your career or you're trying to get that leadership position for the first time is honing your skill of observation. What are the problems that like your manager is trying to solve? Where can you be indispensable in helping your manager solve certain issues? Now, and then if you can go past that, depending on, your company structure, whether it's a small or big company, sometimes you can kind of go above that manager level and figure out, well, what are like some of the company issues that we can solve? I think then going to that level and maybe even talking to other people that aren't your manager, who are other leaders, who maybe you have a certain skill set that you're like, hey, I noticed that this seems to be an issue, or is this something that you want to work on? I feel like I could come in and help in this certain area. You're going to start getting noticed, I feel like, much more quickly if you're that proactive problem solver. I think also just being the one to volunteer for anything, like saying yes, like really limit your no's, I feel like, in the beginning, and just work really hard to provide value. I think also when it's time for your annual reviews or performance reviews, however your company does it, I think I didn't know to keep a list of all my accomplishments and even the compliments that I've gotten from people around me. And I think being able to go into those reviews and being very solid about here's what I did to add value, here was the outcome, here are the things that people are saying about me, to really take control of your kind of brand image, if you will, right? Because a lot of women, I think especially, just think people are going to notice all the good things they're doing. And I've definitely found that people are just kind of thinking about them, and their next move. And so sometimes if you don't come in and connect the dots for leaders on what you've been doing and the value you've been adding, they don't really know. And so I always encouraged like my direct reports to, okay, it's review time. Let's talk about everything you've been doing, and let's put like a nice list together so that we can tell, our leadership team what you've actually been doing. So I think those are my final thoughts on that.
Well, thank you, Cecily, for sharing your thoughts and your expertise. That's all for today. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for taking the time to hear her. Join our efforts and learn more about Women Who Succeed at womenwhosucceed.org.